Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Financial Survival Network is presented to you by Regal Assets. Buy and sell physical gold and silver through your existing retirement plan, 100% tax-free with Regal Assets. If you want to include physical gold or silver in your existing IRA or old 401k, request your free investment kit, which was recently featured in the Forbes and Smart Money Wall Street Journal magazines. Call toll-free 855-678-6620, 855-678-6620, or visit regalassets.com. You know, some people think that you need to be a professional to see into the scam, to watch the boys, or da boys as they're called, to figure out what they're doing. But my next guest, he's just a pharmacist, a humble pharmacist in Canada, and he's got these guys dead to rights. You've read about him, you've heard about his lawsuit, and he knows where the gold is or isn't. Harvey Organ of harveyorgan.blogspot.com. Harvey, welcome to the financialsurvivalnetwork.com.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And it really is a pleasure because you're a bit of a sleuth. You've kind of got these guys, they're elitists, they're so smart. They went to Harvard, they went to Yale, they went to the University of Chicago. I mean, you name it. This is the creme de la creme. They've been pulling the wool over everybody's eyes for decades now, and yet you've nailed these guys over and over again. How did you do it?
Well, I knew something was wrong. It actually starts in probably 1999 when I had some shares I actually had 2 shares in the Bank of International Settlements. And I got a letter from them that they're confiscating my shares. I said, so, shareholders, how can you confiscate somebody's shares? Not only that, they say your fair market value is 19,000 American dollars, but we're going to give you a nice check for 9,000 American dollars. Thank you very much. Here's a check and goodbye.
Well, that was nice of them, wasn't it?
So someone, a fellow by the name of Reg Howe, a very good friend of mine, a lawyer from Boston, also had 6 shares. He gets in touch with me and then teaches me what is really going on in the gold market. And then I started realizing, oh my goodness, they're manipulating gold. And that's how I got interested in this field. And then I started writing about it. And that's been how many years now? 1999 till now. So it's been quite a few years.
You were really ahead of everybody. And it's interesting because when we say manipulation, you know, manipulation is not a fair term. They're stealing money from unsuspecting investors. That's what manipulation is, right?
100%. It's worse than that because there's so much fraud going on. Like the GLD and the SLV at the New York Stock Exchange are total frauds. There's no real physical backing of them. There's some. And if you probably were open up their vault, you'd probably see nothing but pieces of paper of obligations to metal, but nothing there. So I felt sorry, and I wrote to the SEC constantly, and she refuses to call me back.
Was that Mary Shapiro back then, or
Shapiro is the only one, and I don't think she's called anybody. The only actual guy that I've been in contact with is Bart Chilton, and I basically told him that I feel there's a problem here, and he really listens to us, and he's really attuned to what's going on.
Right.
So everybody else, forget it. The other 4 commissioners of the CFTC never respond to any emails whatsoever. The only guy is Bart Chilton.
So did they ask you to just take us off your mailing list, or did they spam guard you, or they just ignore you?
Ignore. They just ignore. It was fascinating also when they asked me to testify at the CFTC hearings. That was probably the most scariest time of my life, hearing before them. And one of the questions that was asked of me was by O'Malley, the new guy there. Then it was 2010. O'Malley came in at the time, and O'Malley has asked me, do I think that the comics can default? And I stopped and I thought, and I said, I can see a time where London is going to run out and they're going to drain all the gold at the COMEX. And he says, I could see South Korea. I said, I could see China. I could see Russia taking all the supplies and loading the boat and moving onto their shores. And he looked at me and was like stunned, when I said that, and remember I said South Korea. And at that time, South Korea was such an ally in the United States. Who would have thought that South Korea would start taking dollars, their own dash of dollars, and start buying gold? And they have.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's interesting because there's a certain inevitability to this whole thing that the scam's gone on long enough, nobody's buying it anymore, and pretty soon everybody's going to be rushing for the foxhole and, hiding their gold and doing whatever they can. And by that point, it's going to be too late.
Yeah, well, my message to all of you is, do not have any paper gold, because it's nothing but a bark of a tree. It's an obligation, something. The most important thing is taking physical, going to your bank in New York, wherever it is, and just say, I want my gold coins and things. And that's what you put in your, in your safety deposit box.
And you have an interesting story about doing just that, don't you?
Oh, yes. Well, we had it at our bank, at Bank of Nova Scotia, and we thought that our gold was there until there was an audit. We had to do an audit for our company, and then we the auditors were not allowed in. And he said, "What are you talking? We're not allowed in." And he said, finally, when they go in, it wasn't there. So then our lawyer we were ready to sue them. And finally, after 6 weeks, it was, they airplaned it from Hong Kong, and it finally landed. And that was my fun. And then others have the same thing, have discovered that their gold and silver is not there, And so that's why I'm saying you got to be very careful, make sure everything is allocated, keep barcodes, bar numbers, and things like that, and know full well what these guys can do. As you saw in MF Global and this PFG Best, these guys can steal.
They don't go to jail for it either, because we've become a totally lawless society, haven't we?
Oh, terrible. It's absolutely terrible. They'll go after little guys with a name like Lance Armstrong or stuff. Or like that.
Or the kid who put Facebook posts up on his Facebook, former Marine, served the country on 2 tours of duty, and he's nuts, and they're trying to get him committed. I don't know if he's gotten out yet, although the judge ordered him released. But it's really disheartening when you think rule of law, that's how the country became great. That's how we did things in this country, in this hemisphere, and now there's no law.
That's the problem, and that's why you all have to be very careful, because it's going to. I feel that it's going to collapse probably in September. You're going to see Greece fail. You're going to see Spain fail, and they're going to have to start printing trillions of paper money to cover all these losses, and you're going to end up with hyperinflation. That's what I think is going down. It doesn't really matter. You can deflate, you can default. Just pick your poison.
Either way, it's a collapse of the system. But you're probably right. You're probably better off with a default, because at least then the monetary system is still in place. You'll have a massive closure of the too big to fails, which have already failed. That's, euphemisms. The too big to fails have failed long ago. They're just branch offices of the Federal Reserve. It's like a Hollywood lot, and there's your backdrop. It says BOA on it, or, Citibank or whatever, but they're all just branch offices of the Federal Reserve.
Right. Well, actually, I'm pretty sure that JP Morgan is taking directions from the Fed itself. I think that the Fed is behind a lot of these things at the precious metal side of things.
Oh, yeah. No
the
question.
Shortfall. I guess that's the Fed is really behind all these transactions. I just think this whole thing can just come apart. I'm worried about a banking holiday, and I'm worried that this can come out any time in September. Okay.
Yeah, you think September. I talked to this guy, Arch Crawford, and he's a astrological financial analyst, and he uses the stars. Whether you believe it or not, he has a pretty impressive track record, and he's saying middle of September to the end of September, we could be seeing martial law and no election in the U.S. or a delay to it. And I don't know if it's true or not, because, when you're predicting the future, it never happens exactly the way you expect. But but this thing, it's a leaky ship, and it's getting leakier by the day, and it's just not going to stay afloat much longer, can it?
No, well, generally, if you look back in history, a lot of people think October, but September is generally the bad month. All bad things, if they are going to occur, it's going to occur in September. And you look what's going on in Spain, there's no way. I mean, their Spanish banks have 3 times its own GDP in loans. And, I mean, this is, the system has got to fail. And, and everybody just breaks, the whole system is going to break down.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's breaking down. There's no question about it. And the exact time of its ultimate collapse, can't really tell, although certainly September and October look highly probable. But,
I think so.
But,
I would be very careful in those time periods. That's what I'm gearing everything. Right now, everybody comes back for their holidays, and it's just going to have a real, the markets are going to be very volatile. And everyone should be careful in how you play this thing. That's what I would urge everyone to do.
All right. Well, Harvey, it's really been a pleasure, and we really enjoy your nightly column. It's the first thing I go to after I eat dinner. And again, just give us your URL where people can learn about your work and read it.
www.harveyorgan.blogspot.com.
Excellent. And you publish Fridays on Saturday, right?
I never do on Friday. I prepare on Friday night, but it comes on Saturday morning. So it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday.
All right. And it's must reading, because it really does follow the metal, follows the money. And we really appreciate your work. It's been a passion of yours for 12, 13 years now, no profit, and it's a great thing.
Well, thank you so much. Okay. Have a good weekend.
We'll talk to you again soon. Be well.
Thank you. Bye-bye.